This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
And welcome back, everybody. There's a really good chance that you may have found us because you were searching a certain word, or maybe just stumbled upon us, and you might get some revelations based on what we're about to talk about. That is narcissism. Now, that word became a buzzword roughly, 6 years, 7 years or so ago. And now it's more of a common conversation where somebody tries to determine whether somebody in their life is a narcissist. Are they? If you feel they are, or if it's diagnosed, how do you deal with that? We're going to talk about all of that today. And he is a licensed marriage and family therapist, certified family mediator, and so much more. He works with people on all couples. He works with individuals in all different areas. Hopefully the narcissism doesn't lead to the need for a mediator. If it does, Gary's right here. Gary Santucci, our professional of the year, joins us on the program. How are you today?
I'm doing very well, Steve. How about yourself?
Very well. And this is one of those subjects where myself, like I believe many, we know a little bit, or we think we do, about somebody who may be a narcissist. How do you, in the broad sense, how do you define that?
Well, you said a few minutes ago that in the last 6 or 7 years, that narcissism has become such a trigger word for many people. And it just seems that over the last 6 or 7 years, it's amazing the increase in the number of people who are narcissistic. And so I think...
Well, does that mean that the more people became, or we're just aware of it?
I think it's almost like a catchphrase. Years ago, everybody was attention deficit. And then several years ago, everybody was bipolar. Now everybody is narcissistic. So, and I don't believe that everybody is narcissistic, especially a lot of times when people say, well, you're a narcissist. There's so many different components to narcissism. And it's the kind of thing where it can be very interfering with so much of your life, very interfering in your relationships, very interfering in how you present yourself. There's a lot of different characteristics that show itself in identifying a narcissist. And I think that if you really looked at it closely, you certainly know people who are narcissistic, definitely. Because in some people, it's not difficult to spot. In some others, it's very difficult. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. The whole thing about narcissism is that there's certain characteristics that come to mind. One of them is that it's kind of like an inflated sense of self-importance. I am just so important, all my ideas and thoughts and opinions are just the most important in the world. And they want you to believe that, and they want you to acknowledge that to them, because that helps them with their inflated sense of self-importance. They crave a lot of attention and a lot of admiration. They, everything they do, oh, didn't I do that well? Wasn't that great? Isn't that the best that you've ever seen? I am just so spectacularly fantastic. I'm so wonderful, When you lack empathy, you don't, narcissistic people really, you don't see hardly any empathy at all. So they don't have any idea how another person feels, or even acknowledge how another person feels, because they're paying attention to their own feelings. Your feelings don't matter. Narcissistic feelings are the most important, by far. Your feelings are non-existent to a narcissist.
Gary, can you have somebody who just needs validation? Maybe that's their love language. They just need to be validated, right. Shown that somebody really cares about them, but they can also have a high level of empathy. Let's look at that. Doesn't make them a narcissist just because they need validation, right?
No, all of these things that we, in terms of narcissistic behavior, are extremes. You can certainly, have empathy. You can certainly want admiration. You want attention, but it's not in an extreme fashion. It's not every time that you're around this person, they are the center of attention. And if they're not the center of attention, it becomes very upsetting and they make it a point to want to be in any way, shape, or form. So, yes, when you carry all these things that we talk about to the extreme, narcissism is certainly on the table for that.
Hmm. What are some of the other traits that we should be mindful of?
They struggle with criticism
Hmm.
and rejection.
Hmm.
I think that a big part of narcissistic individuals is that there's a sense of insecurity that they really keep under wraps. They don't want to show that insecurity. So they cover that up with, this grandiose, attention seeking, inflated sense of entitlement. And I am the best. I am the greatest.
Hmm.
When Ali said, I am the greatest, he backed it up. Okay. Right.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't think that many narcissistic people can back it up that they are the greatest. And so, we see a lot of that today. In our social medias, we see that, that people are presenting themselves as just spectacularly wonderful. What a great life I live. Look at me, look at me, look at me, kind of thing. And so it's put out there and everybody looks at that and says, oh, wow, that's really great. But underneath all of that is a sense of insecurity that is very, very strong and runs very deep and has been there for a long time, but it's hidden for the most part.
Where's it come from?
Well, it comes from a number of places. One is the environment, comes from the environment, how you were raised.
Mm.
For example, parenting style. Okay.
Mm.
If you were raised in a home that where the parents were overly permissive, or the other extreme, overly controlling, you have a distorted sense of self. It's either, oh, you're the greatest, or you can do nothing right. And so if you've been exposed to that over a number of years, that impacts you as to how you see yourself. And so your self-image is certainly wounded, never fully developed. Your self-esteem is affected by that. Your self-confidence is affected by that. And again, to the extreme, if you have overly permissive parents that kind of let you do everything and make your own decisions at a very early age, you have this sense of entitlement. You have this sense of I'm the best. There's nobody like me, and it's reinforced. Just like if you are controlled and you can do nothing right, that's also reinforced because you're constantly reminded of that. And those kinds of things grow in an individual from a very early age. Another reason is, for example, if you are overly indulgent in your growing up experiences, in your environment, okay, that's another main factor. Neglect and abuse is also a factor because now when you're neglected or abused growing up, you have to protect yourself. So you develop these ways of protecting yourself, and they tend to go to the extreme. I am better than this. I am the best. I am, and you take it to the extreme. If you look at yourself and say, I'm a good person, I'm capable, I have abilities, and so on, that's in the confines of, shall we say, normalcy, whatever normalcy is. Okay. But if it goes beyond that and it goes to the extreme, you have to protect yourself as a survival more than anything. So you develop these kinds of characteristics, these narcissistic characteristics that kind of guide you through early childhood into teenage years and into adulthood. Excessive praise or criticism is another, you're the best. You are the best. My child is the best. We see these bumper stickers on cars.
Yes.
My child was it made the honor roll, and my child did this, and my child did that. On one side, that's, kind of like an extreme. The criticism is, well, my child can do nothing right, dumb, stupid, ignorant, can't walk and chew gum at the same time.
Hmm.
All of those things are incorporated in hearing that all the time, over and over again. So that impacts how you see yourself. So in order to survive, you develop these characteristics that become extreme. And therefore, you see a lot of these behaviors pretty much in adulthood. You can see them early on, too, in teenagers, even young children, 5, 6, 7 years old. So also, I think it becomes a defense mechanism because you have to hide that insecurity that you feel. And so we do that through our defense mechanisms. And we paint ourselves in ways that this is who I am, but that's not who I really am. This is who I want you to think I am. So we present ourselves in that way, and we become very good at hiding those insecurities.
Isn't it interesting that you could come from both sides of the spectrum within your childhood? In your examples, you could have one where the parents, my child is the best, you are the best, or you could have the other side where you can't, can you do anything right? Like, really? Come on.
Right.
And both could breed a narcissist later in life.
Yes,
Let's
indeed.
say, now that we've defined it, you're on the receiving end of it. Let's say
Yes.
you identify that it's your partner, your spouse, somebody you're close to, could be a friend, coworker, whatever it is. How do we deal with that?
Well, I think one of the best ways of dealing with it is to make sure that you have consistent and established boundaries. And first of all, you have to be able to recognize that you're dealing with a narcissist. Setting boundaries isn't going to help if you don't understand what you're dealing with. So I think it's really important. For example, if you are in a relationship with a narcissist, I think that if you were to enter therapy and have an understanding and a knowledge of what you're dealing with, then the next step would be to develop those boundaries. And I think one of there's several boundaries that can be very, very helpful. Narcissists are going to exploit the person that they're in a relationship with any chance they get. They're going to do it through manipulation. They're going to do it through threat. They're going to do it through a number of different means to exploit the other person. So you want to be able to limit what you share personally with a narcissist. If you give them too much information, they will definitely use that information at some point against you in a very harsh kind of way. Because it is about control. So when you are controlling someone, if you have ammunition to control that person, you are more successful in controlling that person.
Interesting.
So you give them a lot of information about, for example, your sexual history. Oh my goodness. That's you're just opening up a door there for the narcissist to use that against you forever. So you have to be aware of limiting your personal information that you share. Don't be open as far as explaining things. Don't feel that you have to explain to the nth degree. They're doing that deliberately. They're drawing you in. The more that you're explaining, the more they're controlling the situation. So you don't have to over-explain where you're coming from, what you're feeling, what your decisions are. This is my decision. Move on. Okay? Be very clear and very direct. Don't be vague because they'll take that vagueness and use it against you. Well, I thought you said this and you said that, and so on. And now you're telling me to be clear and direct in your boundaries. Be consistent in how you present all this. You can't do it one way one time and one way another. Be real consistent so that the narcissist knows exactly where you're coming from. Okay? Power struggles are very, very important to a narcissist. They want to overwhelm, they want to control, they want to dominate. So if you engage in a power struggle with a narcissist, be ready, because that's not going to necessarily be a good outcome for you. And then the other thing would be having an exit strategy. If it became so overwhelmingly difficult, unpleasant, harmful, physically, emotionally, and mentally harmful, you need to have exit strategies to get away from that person.
Is it possible to be in a relationship with someone and then later revealed that they're a narcissist? Can they hide it? Can they keep it contained?
Yes.
And then it gets to a certain point where it's like, wait a minute, this is not the same person. And they're exhibiting traits of a narcissist.
Well, I think one of the things that I have found in dealing with couples, I can change her when we get married. I can change him when we get married. No, no, that's a fatal mistake, I think. Because then you may see signs, red flags, for example, but you overlook them because after we get married, it'll be very different. I'll be able to change that person and control that and so on. And, you're not going to be able to do that.
Right.
You're not going to be able to do that. So
I've heard another way to deal with a narcissist. I don't know if this is true, but to always present the facts, because they can't.
Yes.
The facts are the facts.
The facts are the facts.
Is that, would you say that's helpful?
I think it's very helpful.
Okay.
And you want them to be factual, not alternate factual. And we're dealing with, that today too. But I think being factual and being consistent, once again, being consistent with those facts and being clear and direct with those facts is very helpful in helping you deal with narcissism in a much better way. Being on the receiving end of it. Being on the receiving end. Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to phrase this question, but let's say you're in a relationship with somebody. Mm-hmm. You figured it out. They're a narcissist. Maybe they contained it. They covered it up in the beginning stages of the relationship. And now you're there. And now it's become challenging. Let's just call it that.
Absolutely.
What do you do at that point?
You have to be aware of some things on the receiving end of that. If you stay in a narcissistic relationship, one of the things that's going to happen is there's a good likelihood of an erosion of your self-esteem, an erosion of your self-confidence, and to a certain extent, an erosion of your self-identity. Narcissists want to isolate you. Okay, so when they can isolate you, they take away your self-esteem, your self-confidence, and your self-identity. So you have to be very aware of that. That's extremely dangerous to your mental and emotional well-being, extremely so.
Wow.
Being with a narcissist, after you are able to get out of that relationship, what I find is that people have difficulty trusting other people, thinking that, I don't ever want to be vulnerable like that again. I don't ever want to be in a situation where, I'm treated that way and so on. So you always keep people at arm's length. It's unfair to the new person coming into your relationship because that person hopefully is not a narcissist. Your selection process is better the second time or third time around. Okay. So you're not dealing with another narcissist, hopefully.
All right.
Some people elect the same people over and over again, and they wonder why they have difficulty in relationships.
That's a classic, if you will. And
okay.
that, as we've talked before, that, it goes back to your childhood where you're looking for something, you're trying to heal something, and then you make those choices of people in your life that might not be the best that support you. Is this possible, this scenario? You're in a relationship with a narcissist. Maybe it's been years. Maybe you've encountered two of them. Is it possible for those situations to mold your personality so you almost become a narcissist because now you're looking for the validation that they kind of, and the self-esteem and everything, that they may have taken away from you? Is that even potentially possible?
Well, I think it's definitely possible. You bring up a very good point, because we're kind of creatures of habit. We can develop these kinds of characteristics over a period of time. Remember, part of the characteristics of narcissism we can develop in the environment. So if we're in that environment where we're dealing with narcissists and we've dealt with them for a long period of time, we can certainly take on those characteristics and have them grow as we meet other people and form other relationships. Find
Wow.
that maybe, oh, this is better. We can control the situation. This is better for me. I've been controlled all these years. Now I'm controlled, and again, that's not healthy either, because you carry from one extreme to another.
I've heard the term, and I'm sure we all have, gaslighting, and I've heard it connected to narcissism. Is there a connection, and can we look at that briefly?
I think there's, it's not in all cases, okay? But I think in some cases, there's gaslighting that goes on. You have somebody that, is sharing a conversation, okay? And, well, you said this before, and you said that before, and now you're talking about something different. And, I don't know where you're coming from. And, that creates an uncertainty, that creates an instability in the person that is on the receiving end of that. So when you're unstable in a relationship, that can breed about more insecurity. Again, you're suffering from self-esteem issues and self-confidence. So insecurity becomes stronger and decision-making becomes more difficult. You can even have physical ailments. You can have stomach difficulties. You can have head difficulties. The stress of dealing with a narcissist every day can show up physically. And many people suffer from those physical ailments because they've been in a narcissistic relationship for a very long time. And that's one of the outcomes of that.
Wow, that's a key point.
Yeah.
You could have somebody walking around with lots of health challenges, and it may come from the stress of the narcissist and everything else that comes along with that. Just beating on your body, and stress does it.
Without a doubt. And you wouldn't even recognize it initially, for a long period of time. And you're suffering from all these ailments, and you can't figure out what the source is. Well, the source is that you've been in a narcissistic environment, if you will, and these have impacted you in such a negative way. The isolation too in a relationship is something that I wanted to touch on too. Narcissists want to isolate you because that helps them control you much better. So they do it through manipulation. They do it isolating from your family, from your friends. They want you all to yourself. And so when that's happening, you find yourself distant from people that you used to hang out with, distant from your family members, distant from people that you work with, because the narcissist wants you all to themselves, controlling everything about you. That helps them. That helps them have that sense of security, because they're very threatened by the fact that you want to be with them, and if you don't want to be with them, my goodness, their insecurities would come to the surface, and they would act accordingly. They would probably want to be more controlling and more manipulative as the day goes by, the week goes by. It's a very difficult thing to deal with.
Learned a lot today, Gary. This is an eye opener.
We could go on too.
I know.
We could talk about this again and again. There's a lot of information here. But, if you are in that environment, I think it's critically important to seek help, okay? Because, there is help to be able to deal with it effectively, to be able to exit from that kind of harmful relationship, and it's very harmful. And, you can move forward in life in a much better way. So there is help available.
Yeah, and you're one of those people, and you can help somebody anywhere virtually. Best way to find you, Gary, what is that?
You can find me at 954-474-1119. You can find me at 954-817-1401. You can also text me on that. My website is GarySantucci.com, and my email is GarySantucci74@gmail.com. Any one of those.
Gary spelled as it sounds with a Y, and Santucci, Santucci.com.
Yes.
Thank you for today. It validated a lot. So, like you said, we could do probably 2 more podcasts on this one topic alone. And if you suspect that your life is not the best because you suspect somebody is a narcissist in your life, get some help for it. Thank you, Gary. Really appreciate it.
Great talk, Steve. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.